Hello everyone and welcome back. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to create meme generator application. We're going to use Next.js. We're going to use setcn for the UI. And for the canvas functionality, we're going to use this React Conva, right? React Conva right here. So anyway, let's take a look how this meme generator works. Like a meme generator application, so we can upload image. As you can see here, I'm going to upload this image right here. And now we have the image, right? So I can add text right here. I can change the text to whatever I want. Like when I say, right, I can move the text whatever I want, maybe on the top right here. And I can add another text. I miss you, right? I can move that down here, right? It works. I can do any text in here I want. There's a lot of things that you can do in here. You can just remove that using this delete button. All right. And now we can also download the PNG. If I click that, as you can see here, we have the image that downloaded right here. Super cool. So now also we can change the image in here. For example, this guy right here, right? We can do that. We can add text. Let's do, let's add text again in here. The guy. Super cool. Yep, we can download that. Let's take a look at the result. Here we go. All right. Cool. So that's we are going to learn in this video. I hope you will be learn a lot of things from this simple video and you can implement the React Canva in your next project. So let's get started. Let's generate brand new Next.js application. I'm going to call that meme generator app. Of course, I'm going to say yes. TypeScript, ESLint, Tailwind, source directory, I'm going to say no. App router, turbo pack, import alias, no. All right, it's done. So let's cd to that folders, meme generator app, and then I'm going to open that in VS Code. Because I'm going to use setcn, so let's install that. npx setcn add lattice. And then we can do init to initialize the setcn in this project. I'm going to use neutral and everything should be fine. Great. So now let's do npm run dev and try to open the page.tsx. Let's open the localhost 3000 on the browser. Let's take a look. By default, we should see the default theme of the Next.js. Cool. So now we need to just remove all this div and then let's try to render div with this class name. Minimal height to screen, which is 100 view height. As you can see in here, the background is gray and the padding is 4. And then inside that, I'm going to create another div that have this class name. Maximal width, I'm going to setting that to 6XL and MX auto. So inside in here, I'm going to put the title and the description. So this is basically that div, as you can see here, that have text center, margin bottom 8. And inside that, we have the heading 1, right, with text 4XL, and also this padding with text gray 600. So let's take a look at the result on the browser. Here we go. Super simple. And then down here under the title and paragraph here, I'm going to enter that. So basically in here, I'm going to create a div with class name, a display grid column 1 by default. On the large screen and more, I'm going to setting the grid column to 3. And then the gap between the item inside the grid is 6, right? So basically, I'm going to create 2 columns inside this display grid. So the first thing is this basically the control panels. So I'm going to put a div and then add this class name. I'm going to say background red 500 just to show you the result right here, right? Just put some maybe text right here, just random things, right? Here we go. And also I'm going to put another div down here. So this is basically the canvas area. So let's put a div with class name background. I'm going to say blue 500. So let's take a look at the result. As you can see in here, basically we have 2 color, red and blue, right? Like a 2 column. But anyway, we're setting in here as a 3 column. So that's why this is a blank, right? So I'm going to span this second div right here, right? Column span 2. This basically will tag 2 column. So as you can see the result, it should be look like this, right? And also on the top right here, I'm gonna setting this as a column span just 1. So anyway, let's now create some component inside the component folders. So I'm going to do components, and inside that I'm going to create like upload controls, upload dash controls.tsx, right? And then let's do rfc, change the name into upload controls, and then let's try to import that right here inside the control panel. So let's do upload controls, just like this. So let's take a look at the result. Now we should see these upload controls. And then let's try to create some other component. So I'm going to call that text control, text-controls.tsx. Let's do rfc, change the component name to text controls, and then we are going to import that down here, right? Text controls, just like that. And let's create another file again. I'm going to call this export controls.tsx. Let's do rfc. And we are gonna import that component down here as well. Export controls. So let's take a look at the result. As you can see, we have 3 components basically rendered in here. And also I'm gonna add maybe space right between the components. So I'm gonna put this space right here, space y4, and as you can see, we have this space. So now let's working with the upload controls component. So now we need to install a component from the setcn. So let's do npx setcn add lattice add. I'm gonna install card and also button component. And I'm gonna open the card component from the setcn. So as you can see, basically the way we're using that, it's super simple. I just want to copy everything right here and just paste that on the top. Let's try to just copy everything. This card, I'm going to paste that down here as well. Copy and save that. Let's take a look. I'm going to refresh just to make sure everything should be up to date. And here we go. As you can see, we have this card right here. So on the card header, I just want to remove all of this and just paste this really simple. All right. As you can see, we have on the card title, basically we have this display flex, item center, and the gap is 2. And then basically I render this upload icon from the Lucid React, right? And then this text right here. So let's take a look. The result should be look like this, right? And anyway, I just want to remove the background. It's annoying to have the background red in here. And here we go. As you can see, we have this upload image. So because this is upload controls component, of course, we need to also install the input component from the setcn UI. So the first thing is let's remove the card footer. And then anyway, I want to do npx setcn add. It's going to be input. And also normally I use also the label component. Let's install that. All right, so first I'm going to render a div in here, right? This div, it should be have class name called space y4, because inside this div, basically we have 2 elements. The first thing is this div, right? Inside this div, basically we have label and input. And also down here, we have the button component from the setcn UI. And I'm gonna call this reset canvas. Like that. And inside this div, basically we are going to render the label and also the input. So let's do a label, come from the UI, and then the text in here, I'm going to say choice image. And also under in here, I'm going to put the input element, come from the setcn UI as well. And let's send some props inside this input. The type, I'm going to setting that as a file, right? And the accept is just image/jpg and image/png. Let's also add class name in here, margin top to 1. Let's take a look. Now we have this space. And basically we are going to send some props inside this button reset canvas. So let's send variant to outline. And I'm going to add class name. The width is full. The background is transparent. So let's save. Let's take a look. This is the result. And then I also want to add some icon right before this text reset canvas. I'm going to render the rotate right here. I'm going to just import that. As you can see, this is the result, right? Super cool. I'm going to make it bigger so you can see clearly, right? Cool. All right, so now let's move into the text control component. So let's open that. And then basically in here, I'm going to change this as a React fragment like this, because inside in here, basically we have 2 cards. So let's first create the card. So anyway, I just want to paste this first card. As you can see, really simple. This card is have card header and also card content. And then inside the card header, we have the card title, right? And inside that, we have this type icon from the Lucid React. And also we have this add text. And also down here inside the card content, we have this button with text, add text, just like that. Let's try to take a look at the result, right? Just look like this, super simple. And then I just want to remove some import component that don't need on these upload controls. Here we go. Now it's clean. Let's go back to text controls, and down here we are gonna put another card as well. So anyway, I just want to copy this card and just paste that down here. For the card header, what I'm gonna do, let's just remove everything in here. And I just want to paste this card title, edit text, and inside the card content, basically I just want to copy and paste come from the upload controls that we have this div, right? Inside the card content, we have this div that I just want to copy everything and then go to text control and just paste that like this. Here we go. So yep, we are going to use label and then input. And for this button down here, let's try to change this text. I'm going to call this delete text. And also for this input, I'm going to remove the file and accept right here. And for the label on the top, I'm going to setting that as a text content. So let's take a look. Here we go. As you can see, we have this text content, and I like to put some props like placeholder. So let's do that inside this input. I'm gonna do this placeholder into enter meme text. As you can see here, looks super nice. So for the delete text button in here, I'm gonna change the color to red. So I'm gonna use that variant in here. Let's go back to text control, right? So in here, I just want to remove everything and change the variant to destructive. It is basically a red color, and the class name with the full. Let's take a look at the result. Here we go, right? That's what I want. So now let's try to working with the export controls UI. Let's go back in here, export controls, and basically I just want to paste this super simple card. As you can see in here, we have card, and then inside that we have card header and card content. Inside the card header, we have card title, right? And with this download icon from Lucid React, and then we have this button on the card content. That's super simple. Let's save that. Let's take a look at the result. Here we go, right? It just looks super clean. So I think we're done with all the UI on the left side. So now let's try to working with the canvas area. Let's go back on the, I think I'm going to close everything and just open the page.tsx. And as you can see, let's working with the canvas area. So the first thing is inside this div, what I'm going to do, let's create a card, right? So in this card, inside that we have the card header, just like a normal like card header, and we have the card content, right? And inside the card header, I'm going to put this card title like this. Let's try to save, and I think I just want to remove the background in here. We don't need that. Let's take a look. Here we go. We have this canvas. Okay. And then what I'm going to do, let's try to put the canvas component inside the card content. So let's try to create that canvas with right here. So I'm going to call this meme canvas.tsx. Let's do rfc and change that to meme canvas. And we are going to import that right here inside the card content. So let's do meme canvas. Just like this. Also, we need to add some class name in here. I'm going to put display flags and justify center just to make sure the meme canvas is always on the center. Let's go back on the meme canvas, right? As you can see in here, this is always on the center. So let's try to add condition in here. I'm going to say cons image, for example, right? For example, we don't have any image, so I'm going to say image null. So like this in here, I'm going to check if we don't have image. Let's try to render something in here. So I'm going to say return. Let's do div. I'm going to add this class name. So let's take a look in here. The first is the border is 2 pixel. And then we have border dash, right? Border gray for the border color, rounded large, overflow hidden, and display flex, item center, justify center, background gray 100 for the background color. And inside this div, basically I'm going to put another div. And then let's do class name. The text, I'm setting that as a center and text gray 500 for the color. And basically in here, I'm going to put icon, upload icon from the Lucid React. So now as you can see, if I save that and let's take a look at the result, we have this icon in here. So anyway, I'm going to make sure that we have width and height in this area in here. I'm going to add style in here. So the style should have width 600 pixel and the width is 400 pixel. So let's save that. Let's take a look. Here we go, right? That's the result. So now let's try to move to the functionality of the app. So basically I'm going to create a hooks to handle all the state, all the functions, so we can access all that state function to any component in here. So let's first create the hooks folder, right? And inside that hooks folder, I'm going to create a use meme generator.ts file. So in here, basically, I'm going to export a function called use meme generator. This is basically a raw function like this. And I'm going to return not component, but I'm going to return a value. I'm going to return state. I'm going to return a function in here. So let's try to create state called image, right? And I'm going to import the useState because we're using useState, of course, this function, it should be client. So I'm going to say use client like that. So let's try to return the image down here. So we can do image set equals to image like this. So now I'm going to create the function for upload image. So here I'm going to say cons, and then I'm going to call that handle image upload set equals to arrow function like this. So I'm going to change this function as an async function. And then I'm going to wrap this function here with use callback. The reason is because I don't want to, this function is re-render every time my component is rendered, right? So here I'm going to wrap this async with use callback. So I want to say use callback like this and put this async inside that use callback function like this, and we need to put dependency right here, just empty dependency. For the parameter of this function is basically I'm gonna put event. This event is basically React change event HTML input element. And what I'm gonna do, let's try to just console log for now. I'm gonna do event dot target dot file. Right, that's it. So let's try to just put this function as a return. So now we can use that function here to anywhere we want. But first, we are going to go back to the, let me go back to the page.tsx and try to import that use hooks right here. So I'm going to say cons and then set equals to use mem generator just to make sure we import that. And then in here, we can grab the image. We can grab the, what the function name, I just forgot that, handle image upload. So we can grab that function as well, like this. If you want to see the value, you can say console log image. Now we should see null on the browser. So anyway, because we're using custom hooks in the home, of course, we have to change this into the use client. So let's do use client. Save, and hopefully now it works, as you can see. So now I can go to inspect and then console. Now let's take a look. As you can see, we have null. So this null is basically value from the image state. Great. So now let's try to running this handle image upload on the button that we have, which is on the upload controls, right? So let's send props on the upload controls. I'm going to name that on image upload set equals to handle image upload. And let's open the upload controls. So first I'm going to create the interface. I'm going to call that upload control props. And in here, as you can see, the props is on image upload. And the type is basically React change event HTML input element and returning void. This is basically the function type. So now we are going to get that right here as a prop. So we can do on Or the first thing is I'm going to make sure should be have type upload control props, and now we can grab the on image upload like this. So now we can run the on image upload function on the input component right here, right? So I'm going to send this on change event that equals to on image upload. So let's try to see what happened if I click the input. It should be running the handle image upload and just console log the event.target.files. So let's take a look on the browser. So in here, I'm going to select any image. As you can see here, I want to select this image and then click open. As you can see now on the console, we have this file list. So this is basically what we want. So first we need to check if we don't have the file, just return nothing. So I'm going to paste this condition. As you can see, if we don't have any file, return nothing. And then finally down here, we're going to use try and catch. Try and then catch. So in here, I'm going to create a variable called image set equals to wait for load image from file. Right, this is function. We're going to create that later, but as you can see, it's sending file on this function. So let's now create the function. So anyway, I'm going to create the function on the root. Here, I'm going to create the utils folder, and inside that we have image.ts file. So here I'm going to export a function called load image from file set equals to arrow function. Because on this function, we send parameter files. Of course, we need to grab that in here. Right, file, the type of that is going to be file, and then this function should be return promise with HTML image element. And inside the function, I'm going to return new promise, grab the resolve and reject, right? And then finally in here, the first thing is I'm going to check if we don't have the file or the type of the file doesn't match. So in here, I'm going to check, as you can see, if the file doesn't exist or the file.type is not image/jpg and file.type is not image/png, this basically will running a reject, right, with message invalid file type, and then just return nothing down here. And then finally right here, I'm going to read the file. So I'm going to say reader set equals to new file reader. So like this. And then finally down here, I'm going to say reader.onload, right? Set equals to an arrow function. What I'm going to do on the reader.onload is basically first, I'm going to initialize image, right? And then I'm going to run the image.onload set equals to resolve and send the image. If something wrong happens, just reject that. And then finally image.source, I'm setting that to reader.result. Then this is basically string. And then down here, what I'm going to do, if error happen, reader.onError, I'm going to reject that promise. And then finally down here, I'm going to say reader.read as a data URL and send the files. So after that, let's go back to use meme generator. So next thing is after we import the load image from files and file, and finally we grab the image, right? And finally set image into image, right? And then finally right here on the image state, we have that file. As you can see in here, we basically return that. I think I just want to console it. Console image just like this so we can see the value. Let's try to upload the image right here. Click open. And then finally, as you can see in here, we have the file that we can render on the browser. As you can see, image, source, and then this data right here. Data, image, GPG, base, 64, and etc. This is basically the value that we can render as an image on the browser. So the next thing is we are going to try to render the image on the browser on this down here, right, on the canvas. But before that, we need to install the Konva, basically, the Konva package, right? So I'm going to copy all of this, the command. Let's go back to the VS Code and then just paste that. This command will basically install the React Konva and also the Konva itself. After that's done, so let's try to run npm run dev again. And let's try to take a look how we can render the Konva, right? It's basically super simple. This is just the example. So let's try to go back to the page, and as you can see down here, we render the mem canvas, right? So we need to send the image basically in here. So I'm going to send image set equals to image. Let's open the mem canvas component. And then in here, we can grab the image like this. So let's try to create the interface on the top here. So I'm going to do interface set equals to mem canvas props. And then let's put the image, right? Image, this image it should be have type HTML image element. Also, I'm going to say or null because sometimes the image is null. So let's put the interface in here, mem canvas props like this. Now let's just remove the image variable in here. We don't need that because the image is come from the props. And now after we get the image down here, what we're going to do, let's try to put this class name with border 2, border dash, border grid 300, round large, and the overflow is hidden. Also, I'm going to set the width and height of this div. So let's copy that and paste that right here. So now let's try to working with the Konva because we're going to render the image inside the Konva. So we're going to use this stage right here. As you can see on the stage, we have the width and height. So I think I'm going to copy that and then go inside the div right here. I'm going to paste that, the stage like this. Of course, we have to import that from the React-Konva. And then inside that, we have to put the layer, right? Layer is also come from the React-Konva. And inside the layer, I'm going to render the image. So let's take a look in here on the React Konva. Let's take a look images. As you can see, we can render image component from React Konva. So let's try to import that on the top right here. So let's do image. Anyway, I'm going to change the name into Konva image, just like this. So now we can use Konva image instead of image. So in here, I'm going to render that Konva image and then put image equals to image. And then I'm going to send the width into, let's try to say 600, and height, I'm going to do 400. Let's save that. Let's take a look at the result on the browser. We have this error. The reason is because cannot resolve canvas package. I'm not sure what happened. I think the Konva package need to have canvas package. So let's try to install that. I hope it's working. npm install canvas. Alright, so as you can see, there's no error right now. Super cool. And let's try to upload image. So I'm going to select this image here, open it. And then as you can see, it's rendered down here. That's super cool. This successfully rendered the image using the Konva package, right? So the next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another state to handle the width and height inside this stage, basically, right? All this width and height. So anyway, I'm going to create that state on the use meme generator custom hook. And in here, I'm going to create state size, right? And by default, it should be have width 600 and the height is 400. And the type of the state size is basically come from the state size type. So we're going to create this type first. So I'm going to create another file to handle all the type. So here I'm going to create a folder called types. And then inside that, I'm going to do meme.ts, all right? So I'm going to paste this export interface state size that have width and height. And all of that is just a number. So now let's try to using that on this state, just like this. Cool. So now we need to send the state size on this return. Just simple as that. And then we can just using that on the page right here. We can just grab it like this. And then we can send that into the canvas, meme canvas, state size set equals to state size. And open the meme canvas, we can grab it in here. So I'm going to say state size that have type state size come from the types, right? So now we can grab that props in here and we can use that. So now let's grab all the 600 width value and I'm going to change that into state size dot width, right? And also all the 400 value, I'm going to change that value into state size dot height. Just like this, and everything should be fine right now. Let's try to go back to use meme generator hooks. So now I'm going to control the image size to have beautiful size image that will be rendered. So I'm gonna showing you what happened. So here, as you can see, if I upload, for example, this image right here, right? This image is tall that have more height than the width, right? I'm gonna click open. So let's take a look at the result. It look like this, super terrible. So I'm gonna fix that because now we have the state size state. Of course, we can change the value based on the image, right? I'm gonna do that inside this try basically. So the first thing is I'm going to create variable called new state size and then run the calculate state size based the image, and then we set the state size into new state size. So where the calculate state size function, so I'm gonna create that inside the image on the utils, right? This one right here. So let's create that function. So anyway, I just want to copy and paste that function in here. As you can see, the maximal width is 600, the maximal height is 400. And I doing just really simple things in here. As you can see, the first is I grab the aspect ratio of the image. And then in here, I have the new width and new height, right? If the new height is more than maximal height, which is now, as you can see here, right? The new height is more than maximal height. It's basically we'll set the new height into maximal height and new width into the maximal height times aspect ratio. You can just play around with this just to make sure you understand what's going on in here. So now let's try to see what happened if I try to upload that image again. So let's refresh, and then I'm gonna upload the image. Just make sure we don't have any error, I hope. Okay, cool, there's no error. So now let's upload that image right here, open it, and here we go. That's the result, right? This is what I want. Look perfect. So what we're gonna do next, if something wrong happened when I upload the image, I just want to console error loading image and paste the error in here, come from the catch basically. Let's grab it like this. Cool, so now we're done with the handle image upload function. So now we need to working with the add text functionality. So let's first create that function. So anyway, we are going to create the function on the custom hooks. So let's go to hooks, use meme generator custom hooks right here. I'm going to create a function called add text. So let's do cons add text that equals to, I want to use callback as well. Use callback, and then inside that I have arrow function. And for now, just put empty array for the dependency. And let's try to just console log, button click it. And then we need to send the add text function down here. And of course, we can grab that function inside of page.tsx right here. Let's grab that function. And then now we can send that on the text controls, basically. Add text that equals to add text. Let's open the text controls and let's take a look in here. We need to create the interface, or I think I'm going to change the name. So just change that to on add text. I think it's fine. So let's go back in here. Let's create the interface called text control props. And then inside that we have the, let me just see that, on add text. This is going to be a function that returning void for now. Okay, so now we can grab that function on this text control props and then just put the interface in here, text control props, just like this. So now we have take a look on the button. If I click that button, it should be running on add text function. Super simple. On click, let's running on add text, just like this. Now let's take a look what happened. If I inspect, go to console, and then if I click the add text, as you can see, button click it. Super cool. It works. So now let's go back to the use meme generator and let's try to working with that function right now. So before we working with the add text function in here, I'm going to show you how basically to render text on the image and how the text can be draggable, right? So let's first create a component. I'm going to call that component called draggable text.tsx. Let's do RFC and then change that to draggable text. Then I'm going to render that draggable text component into the canvas basically. So let's see meme canvas in here. I'm going to render that under the Konva image. So let's do draggable text like this. So let's take a look what the result. If I upload an image like this and let's take a look, we get an error. The reason is because cannot read property of undefined get parents. This is basically on the draggable text. So let's try to fix that in here. I'm going to remove the div, right? I just want to use React fragment, and inside that, I'm going to render the text component from the Konva. So let's do text come from the React Konva like this. This should be self-closing tag. And then inside that, I'm going to put this as a draggable, right? Just to make sure we can drag the text whatever we want. So for the text, I'm going to setting that as a hello world, for example. And then we can change the font size to whatever we want. Font size, I'm going to setting that to 40, for example. Let's save that. Let's take a look at the result. As you can see here, we have a hello world, and I can just move whatever I want. For example, the color of the text, I'm going to say fill into, let me do white. All right, that's the color. Let's just remove this one. Here we go. Now, as you can see, the color is white, right? I can just move this text whatever I want. So that's the idea, basically. So now what I'm going to do is let's go back to the use meme generator. And in here, the first thing is I'm going to create the text element props. So let's try to go back to the types and then meme.ts. So let's try to create the type in here. Inside the text element, we have ID, we have text, right? And then we have the X position, Y position, the font size, the fill. The fill is basically the color of the text, the stroke width, font family, then the align. So this is basically all the type that we need. Great. So now let's go back in here. And what I'm going to do, first I'm going to create a variable called new text. The new text, it should be have type text element, right? And then I'm setting this as an object, and inside that we have an ID, and the ID is should be, I just want to render ID as a date basically. So I'm gonna paste this right here. As you can see, the ID is text and then dash date now. This is just random number, and then the text by default is meme text. And also I'm gonna put the position X and Y, and this is basically all the value. As you can see, we have X position, state size dot width divided by 2, and state size by dot height divided by 2 for the Y. And for the font size, I'm setting that as a 40. For the fill color of the image, which is for the text is white and the stroke is black, stroke width is 2. The font family of the text is basically impact, Arial black, and sans serif, and the align is center. As you can see here, we have the error because now use callbacks is missing dependency, which is state size, because we're using that in here. So I'm gonna copy and just paste that like this. Now it's clean. And then the next thing is we need to put the value here into the state. So we need to create another state basically. So on the top right here, I'm gonna create another state called text elements, right? So now we can set text elements down here into the new text, just like this. As you can see, we have this error. The reason is because the text element by default is have type array, right? Why I'm using array in here? Because I like to have more than one text in here. So that's why the UIs look like this. I can add many text I want. If I click one time, it should be show one text. If I click that again, it show two text and etc. So that's why I'm using array in here. And then in here, what I'm gonna do, let's try to grab all the previous value, and then here I'm going to grab all the previous value and put the new text in here. And also we need to indicate that what the text that active. For example, I have two texts in here, right, on the image. If I click the first text, it should be have like an ID that active, right? So I'm gonna create state to handle that. So here I'm gonna create selected ID. This basically selected text ID, right? And then what I'm gonna do is here, after I set the text element, I also want to set the selected ID into the new text dot ID. Here we go. So now what we're gonna do is let's try to return the text element and selected ID down here so we can use that whatever we want, right? Just paste this, cool. So let's try to using that on the page.tsx first. I'm gonna copy it. And then we can just grab it in here. So now we need to send this value into the, let me see, text controls and also into the meme canvas. So let's send that like this. Now let's grab that from the text control first. I'm going to add the type first. So let's put the selected ID and the text element in here. And also we can grab that inside this props. So let's just paste that, as you can see. Now where we can use the selected ID and text element. So basically this selected ID and text elements on the text control component is just for edit the text. And we're gonna back on this component later. For now, let's move into the meme canvas, right? So in here, basically, we are gonna grab that types first on the top. Let's grab the text element and selected ID. The text element have type text element. Just make sure this is array. And now we can just grab that value in here. Great, so now we have that value. So now let's try to map through the text element because this is array. So let's just scroll down and then here, right, we have to map through the text element dot map. We grab the individual text element. I'm going to say like this, and then just try to return the draggable text inside that. Just like this. So now we need to send the key. Key should be text element dot ID. And then we need to send the text props. The text prop, it should be text element, right? For now, it doesn't have text prop, so let's go to draggable text. So let's grab the all possible props type in here. As you can see, we have text prop. This is basically text element. For individual text element, is selected is boolean, on select is function, and on change is basically partial text element function that returning void. Great. So now in here, we need to grab the types. I'm going to grab all the type in here and just put the interface here, draggable text props like this. So now let's put all the text props inside this text component. So let's just remove this text font size and fill because we have already have that value on the text props, by the way. So I'm going to put all the text props object inside the text component. So as you can see, the text prop is basically, let me show you right here. This is basically the individual text props that we have ID, text, X position, Y position, the font size, the fill, the stroke, and etc. Right? So now let's try to go back in here and I'm going to upload a file. So let me try to upload this file. And then as you can see, if I click the add text button in here, now we have new text right here, meme text, right? I can just move whatever I want. I can click that again. I can just move whatever I want. Click that again. Just basically I can create any text I want and I can just move that whatever I want. The next thing what we're gonna working on is the ability to edit the text because now there's no way to edit the text, right? So let's try to working with that because we know the text here that we need to update, right? The text is stored on the set text element state, and this basically that we need to update, right? Text element. So that's why in here I'm going to create a function called update text. So this is the function, super simple. Let me show you, right? This function is basically use callback, and inside that we have arrow function that take an ID. This is responsible to, for example, I'm going to click the first text or the second or the third or whatever. It's basically really important, this ID. And then we have new text, right? This is new text. As you can see in here, I set the text element state into the first. I map through all the previous set, all the previous text element on the state, and then I grab the element.id is equal to ID that I send on these parameters. If the ID is matched, basically I just want to update the text into the new text. Just that's it. So now let's try to send the update text into the return in here so we can grabbing that on the page.tsx basically. So let's grab that function here. And then now we can just use that function on the text control. So in here, basically, I'm going to send the on update text into update text. And also I like to send the props called has image set equals to image right here. If image have a value, the has image will be true, right? So let's open the text control component. We need to update this interface. The first thing is I'm gonna add the has image. It should be boolean, and then the on update text, it should be function that returning void, but we have also parameter ID and text, and all of that is basically string. So now we can grab that value in these props. First, we can grab the has image boolean, and then we grab the on update text function in here. So now where we have to run the on update text function. So basically we need to running that on the input. So this input right here. So let's try to run on change event. As you can see, it's basically running on update text that send the selected ID and target value. As you can see in here, I get an error because sometimes is null because the selected ID is have type string, not have null. So now in here, I should add condition basically. So I'm going to say if the selected ID have a value, I'm going to render this card. So let's just copy all this card and then move that on the top right here. So now the error should be gone. Let's try to console log that just to make sure. As you can see now, this is null. If I upload file, right, this image right here, now it's null. If I add text, this is the ID basically, right? This comes from the text control 22, this run right here. But if I have, for example, like two texts, now as you can see, if I click this one, it's not have a value, right? It's not update the value, as you can see here. But at least we have the value if I click the add text for the first time. I think it's fine. Okay, so now let's working with that. The first thing is I'm going to put the default value in here, right? The default value is the text right here. So I'm going to put the value set equals to selected text dot value. So let's grab the selected text from the props here. Or I think because we have text element is basically the array of text element that render on the canvas. So that's why in here, I just want to check that out with find. Okay, I'm going to use text element dot find element dot ID is equal to selected ID. So now we have the selected text that active. Great. So now we have that right here. As you can see, we have the error is possibly undefined. So now let's try to add the condition as well in here. So I'm going to say and like this. So now the error should be gone. So let's try to add first the image. Great. We have the image. And if I click add text, as you can see, now we have this value right here. That's super cool. If I update that, as you can see, it's updated right here. That's what I want. Cool, bro. Right? That's amazing. If I put some icon maybe, okay, it also works. Amazing. Cool. So now we have that text. If I click another text right here, change that, it also works, as you can see. But if I want to go back to the first text, I cannot do that. As you can see here, just the first text that can be updated. So that's why here I'm going to handle that selected ID. I'm going to need to update the value on the meme canvas basically. So the first thing is we need to go back to the use meme generator custom hooks. We need to send this, what is the ID that update right here? Set selected ID. We need to send this basically to update the ID, right? So I'm gonna give a comma and then set selected ID, right? We have that. So now let's grab that value on the page right here. So you can grab it, set selected ID, and then now we can send the function state in here into the canvas, just like this. I'm going to give a name on select text. Great. So now let's go to meme canvas and we need to update the interface. I'm going to add this interface right here on selected text that have an ID parameter as a string and returning void. On selected text, we need to grabbing on these props just like this. So now what I'm going to do is let's send that in here. So I'm going to send on select, right? set equals to an arrow function because we need to send element in here. So I'm going to run on selected text into text element.id. So we send this id to the draggable text. So let's try to copy the onSelect. I hope we have the onSelect in here. Cool. So in this text here, I'm going to send the onClick set equals to onSelect. So hopefully now we have the ID. So let's take a look here. I'm going to upload that. As you can see here, I have update 1, right? And then I'm going to click that again, update 2nd. Add that again. I think now I'm going to update, for example, the update 1 test. As you can see, it working. Super cool. Update 2nd. Update also works. That's what I'm looking for. Super cool. So now I need to have ability to delete the text, right? Because now the delete functionality is not working. So let's try to create a function on the use meme generator custom hook. Of course, to delete text on the canvas, it's super simple. I'm going to create this function right here, const delete text set equals to use callback. This is just take a ID as a parameter because we need to specify what ID we need to delete. And then down here, we're running set text element, check the previous value on the text element state that have element.id is not equal to id and return it. Super simple. And then in here, set the selected id back to null. Great. So now we need to send the delete a text function, and we can just grabbing that on the page right here. And then we can just send that on the, let me scroll down, on the text controls. So I'm going to give a name this on delete text. Let's go to text control, add that interface. Basically, this function is just like an ID, right? Super simple. Let's grab the on delete text right here on the props. And where we need to running that, it's on the button right here, button delete text. I'm going to add on click in here and running this on delete text and send the selected ID. And just that's it. And also, I just want to make sure that if we don't have any image in here, I want to disable this button. So that's why in here I use has image props value on this button here. Where is that? On this button in here, I'm going to setting that as a disable if we don't have image. Just like that. As you can see now, it's disabled. Super nice. So now let's try to upload image, and then I'm going to add text right here. Cool. Update that. Super cool. Let's adding that again. Here I'm going to test, right? Meme text update and meme text test. So now let's delete the top right here, the update. I'm going to click delete, and now it's gone, right? That's what I want. If I click that again, I can delete that again. So the next thing that I forgot is the button reset canvas. For now, it's not working. As you can see, if I have text and if I reset that, it's not working. So now let's try to create the function first on the custom hooks. So anyway, I just want to paste this reset canvas function. As you can see, it also use callback. And then the first thing is it will be remove the image, set image back to null, and then set text element back to empty array, set selected ID into null, and set state size into the default value, which is width 600 and the height is 400. So now we need to send the reset canvas function on this return, and we can grabbing that on the page right here on the top. And now we can just sending that on the, I believe on the upload controls. So I'm going to send the on reset set equals to reset canvas. Let's open the upload controls component. And I'm going to first add this type right here on reset set equals to function with empty parameter that returning void. So now we need to grab that function on these props of the component. And now we can just using that when I click the reset button. So let's try to add on click set equals to on reset. Just that's it. So now let's try. If I upload an image, add some text in here, right? So now let's try to reset. now it's gone. That's what I want. So the next step is we are going to working with the download functionality. As you can see in here, basically if I click download PNG, the image will be downloaded automatically. So let's try to see. The first thing is basically we need to have a ref on the stage. Let me open component and then the meme canvas. So basically on this stage right here, we need to put reference, right? So we can make sure that all this stage will be downloaded, right? So first let's create the reference on the use meme generator custom hooks right here on the top. I'm going to create that. So I'm going to give a name stage ref. As you can see, I use ref come from the React, and the type of this is basically Konva.stage like this. So now we need to send the stage ref on the return right here. I'm going to send in that. And now let's grab that stage ref on the page.tsx. Let's grab on the top right here. And then we can just send that stage ref on the meme canvas. Let's send that like this. So let's open the meme canvas and let's add this stage ref that have type react.react object and then konva.stage or null. So now we can grab that stage ref on the props like this, right? So now we can just put this ref on the stage right here. So we can use ref set equals to this stage ref. As you can see on the draggable text component, we have this error. Basically, some props is not used for now, so I just want to comment that is select and on change. Is select and on change, right? So let's first go back to the use meme generator, and basically we need to create a function to export that image. So in here, I'm going to create function called export image set equals to, I'm going to use callback again. And then inside that, I'm going to put arrow function. Let's just create the arrow function like this. And for the dependency, I'm going to put empty array. Great. So this function, it should be async function. So let me just change that. And then what I'm going to do first is we are going to get the ref. But if I don't have the ref, it's just return nothing in here, right? If the stage ref.current doesn't have value, just return nothing. And in here, I'm going to wait for the promise, right? It's just 150 millisecond. And then down here, I'm going to create a variable called URI set equals to stageref.current to data URL and put this object right here. Pixel ratio is 2 and the meme type should be image/png. And now finally we can just download the image. As you can see here, I create variable called link set equals to document create element anchor tag, and link.download should be the name of the file, just meme.png, and the link.href is URI, document the body append child link, and then the link I click that using link.click, and then finally here I remove that link. Okay, so now let's take a look. I'm going to send this export image function into this return, and then I'm going to grabbing that on the page. Let's go on the top right here, just grab that function. And then finally, I'm going to send that export image function on the export control. So I'm going to send the has image props and also on export function. So let's open the export controls. So first I'm going to create the interface called export control props that have 2 value. So let's just grab that value and put the props in here, right? The props type. So we grab the has image and also grab the on export function. So the first thing is I'm going to disable this button if the image doesn't exist, right? Let's take a look. As you can see now, the download PNG is disabled. And also I'm going to add on click event. When I click that button, it should be running the on export function, just like this. Let's take a look. I'm going to go back in here. Let's try to upload image, which is this image right here. And then I'm going to add text. Let's just put the text right here. Say, hello, bro. And then I'm going to add new text. Let's put watch out or whatever. I don't know. Let's just put just random text in here. Let's try to download the PNG. And then as you can see on the top right here that we have the meme. If I open it, that's the result. It's not 100% width. I'm not sure. We have some problem, I think. Alright, so finally I found the bug. As you can see in here, basically on this stage, I'm setting the width and height to window.innerHeight. I'm not sure why I'm doing this because this should be stage size.width and stage size.height. So let me just change that to the state size.height and state size.width right here. Right, cool. So now let's just take a look on the top right here. We don't need selected ID in this component, so I'm gonna remove that. Right. So also just remove the selected ID in here, and let's try it. I'm going to try to download this PNG, and now hopefully we have full image right here. That's pretty amazing. So now let's try to upload vertical image. Here I'm going to select this image right here, and I'm going to add new text. As you can see, the text is not on the really center on the image. That's the problem. So let's try to go back to the draggable text component, and in here I'm going to send another props called offset x. So this basically will times the text props.text.length with text props.font size times by 0.3. So this is basically the way that I get the specific position of the text, right? I just want to remove the, let me just try to remove the, let me try to see here, in selected and on change. We don't need that in here. Let's also remove that. Here we go. Okay, so let's take a look. Now I'm going to try to upload this image. Great. If I add text, as you can see now in here, let's try to refresh that. And then now I'm going to upload the vertical image and add text. Here we go. That's what I want basically. I can move that right here and right here. So for example, I'm going to change this. When I say this one right here, I miss you. So let's try to download the PNG file. As you can see here, I'm going to open, and this is the result, right? Super nice. So let's try to change the image. I believe the text is still there because we did not reset that. As you can see, this text is still there. So I want to, when I change the image right here, the text should be also reset. So the way we're doing that is pretty simple. We need to go back to this use meme generator custom hooks, and we are going to set the text elements back to 0. This is basically the array of the text, right? So I'm gonna put that in here, set text elements back to empty array. So now I just want to make sure everything should be clean. I'm going to refresh that. Great. So now let's try to upload the image, which is this big image right here. And I miss you, right? Okay. So now when I change the image right here to that vertical image, now the text should be gone, right? Alright, so I think that's it guys for this video. This meme generator is work perfectly. You can upload image, you can put the text and move whatever you want with the text, and then you can download the image. That's work perfectly. But the things that you have to know is the code in here is not 100% clean because we're using this custom hook. And then the problem is on the page right here. I basically grab all the state, all the function, and putting that on each component in here. And basically, there's a lot of props drilling happening here, right? The better way is you have to create state management like context API or Redux or whatever you want to make the state in here better, right? But I think it's fine for now to just learning how the way we create the meme generator application. So I think that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the next video.